Welcome to the James Howp Show. I'm your host, James Howp. This is episode 1. I already recorded this episode, so I'm doing an intro for it now. Normally, I would try to be funny. I didn't worry about that as much. I just went through and wanted to do episode 1. So I just kind of rambled about, I guess, work and jobs and automation and a bunch of random stuff. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Okay. That's pretty quiet. But yeah, I got the polar bear shirt. We're doing it. I was just sitting here thinking about capitalism, communism, economics, labor, the proletariat, all that shit. Thinking about anti-work movement, or laying down or laying flat, whatever they're calling it in China. There's a lot of people in China basically giving up on their system too, and they call it laying flat. I don't know. Here, I don't know if there's a name for everybody. Anti-work, I guess. Everybody's getting fed up with the system, the way things are, not getting paid enough, all of that. Not being fulfilled and satisfied in life. And along with all the, we'll just call it what it is, all the tyranny that's showing its face, people are getting fed up with that too. And it brings up a lot of questions for me because I've always wondered about this. I think the problem is everyone gets caught up on one of two sides of this argument. Everybody sees, first of all, there's a big misconception. Everyone has the two words communism or socialism, whatever. People use these interchangeably here in America, or they have capitalism. And for some reason, they think that capitalism is the opposite of that. And even by definition, if I was just going to use these simple terms, that wouldn't technically be accurate. As a matter of fact, you can have both communism and capitalism at the same time, which in some ways is basically what's going on here in America. And it's also how China has their setup between their government and their economy. And maybe Russia's like that to some extent. Maybe other countries are like that to some extent as well. So you can have both. Now, in some ways, they don't play well together because one of the foundational ideas behind traditional capitalism, let's say, is the free market, which I believe in the free market. I think all the markets should be free and the markets should figure themselves out. I mean, how can people know better than the market? What, market forces deal with things, okay? That's why you've got supply and demand. Now, it depends on which economists you talk to. If you go with these modern economists and Keynesians and all that, then they don't believe a word of what I'm about to say. But the old Austrian school of economics was pretty much based on the principle of supply and demand. And it's a very massive force in a market. But anyway, I didn't come to break down all of the basics and fundamentals. You're going to have to look that up elsewhere. I was just thinking about some simple questions within this subject, namely related to the anti-work movement, related to what's happening in our workforce, in our modern day, with our new technology taking over, and automation, and robots and machines and AI, and the potential for that to just wipe out so many jobs. And in 10 to 20 years even. And I always have wondered this, like, one of the dreams of society, or one of the ideals, was always for people to make a world where their children could live and have it better than they had it. It was like the Jetsons. It was like this idea of building a world where the technology was advanced. People could actually do things and like they didn't have to spend all their time working. Like because of all the technology and advancements of their modern society, they had such massive productivity that it didn't take a whole lot of output of effort for people to live. They were able to spend more time in leisure and enjoying themselves. And somehow, what we've seen in the United States, and I imagine other parts of the first world, is this insane increase in productivity and technology, but also an increase in the average effort output of each individual within the society. And what's funny is that if you go to the top rungs of wealth distribution, you will actually find that wealthier people work less than poor people. Like legitimate hours put in to work. And so we have more technology and automation than ever, more productivity per worker than ever, and yet people have to work more. It seems crazy, but a lot of it is just because of bad management, bad, not necessarily the companies, but like bad like regulations, bad rules, a lot of red tape, a lot of just laws that make things harder on people in general, and it makes it harder on businesses and workers. It's not all bad, but anyway, just I'm laying out these ideas to give the foundation of just where I'm coming from when I say this. And the question I've always had is, does everyone really need to produce? Does every single individual in the society really have to be economically productive? Not that they wouldn't be productive for themselves, not that they wouldn't pursue their own whatever. I think we have a real problem here because you pose this question, and on one side, people are like, oh, of course not, no one should have to work. And on the other extreme, you have, oh, well, I have to work, so you should have to work because I have to, and everyone should work. That's just the way of God in America. I don't know. But it seems like those are the two extremes. But really, the reality we're dealing with is not everyone's going to be able to produce economically. It's going to be a big issue. And, you know, there's an issue still with trucking and truck drivers. But it's going to be pretty much eventually all drivers. You know, all delivery, transport, courier type of work. That's going to be gone. I have been saying for a long time, at least to friends and family, and now this will end up on my YouTube channel, so publicly I'll be saying this, but fast food is, it ain't going to last either. Those jobs are going away. I mean, the actual technology, the machinery to be capable of fully automating a restaurant, a fast food restaurant, at least to the point of only needing a handful of workers, the tech is already there. Okay, it'll take specific manufacturing to put that technology together in a way that will effectively, you know, cook and distribute these food items and package them and all that. But at some point, they're going to find a way to do this with the fewest employees possible. And we're really almost there because you look around and all these restaurants are saying, oh, we're hiring. We don't have enough people. We need more workers. And somehow they are still running all day long, making fast food. So, I mean, they're already doing it. They're already running with a skeleton crew and producing a lot. So it can be done. So this is a real issue. Like, eventually so many jobs are going away. I had a job one time, and it was a software job, and it was called Automation Engineer. Well, it was Quality Assurance too, but it was like on the content automation, whatever. All these names don't matter. The point is, what I was doing is I was basically putting scripts together that would test our software automatically so that the software testers would have less work. And what do you think is going to happen there? What do you think? How do you think the company is going to use this expanded production capacity? How do you think they'll respond? Do you think that they'll just leave that as a surplus of productive capacity in case the workloads increase? Or do you think they'll decide it's more cost effective to remove employees from positions which are now automated and then put more work on the shoulders of whoever remains? Or do you think that they'll just require more output out of the people who are already there because now they should have more productive capacity? One of the last two, for real. That's what they're going to do. I don't know why this is such a crazy thing. Like, it always seems like businesses and companies, and this is how they're designed to operate, is to maximize profit and minimize cost. It's what they're supposed to do. It's how they're designed. But think about the healthcare requirement. If an employee works more than 28 hours a week on average or whatever, from the ACA, which was something that came in during the Obama administration. Now think about that. What happened? What happened when they did that? Well, I know what happened when they did that. If you weren't a full-time worker, your hours got cut because the businesses unanimously decided it was more cost-effective to cut hours and find an extra couple of workers than it would be to just offer some health insurance every month. And it's like, for those of us who are affected, myself included, maybe I would have just wanted to keep all my hours. You know? So think about that. While technically full-time is 35 plus hours, well, technically it's 40 hours, but anyway, that wanted to say if you work more than 28, but these little technicalities don't matter. The point is, what's the theme here? We already know what happens. Like, technology improves, businesses become more productive. They don't really pass that on to their employees. Maybe some do, and they should. I mean, you know, most of your profits, I really think this, most of your profits should be reinvested into your business. And raising your employee compensation and taking care of your employees is a business investment. Your employees are your business. They are your company. They do all the work. Without them, you wouldn't have anything. Like, seriously. Maybe it started off as just you in a garage, but it didn't stay that way, did it? Because you needed some damn help. So you better pay the damn help. But there's a lot of different sides to this question. And I've just rambled on for longer than I wanted on a simple question, though. But it all boils back to this. Like, because of all these forces involved, it's a complicated issue. Like, how do you solve the issue of production and workers and who should do what and how people have to survive? The problem is, what's the alternative? If somebody doesn't work, how can they survive in this society we've designed? I mean, there's really only one way they can survive. If they don't want to work, they have to get handouts. They have to get help. I mean, they have to get some sort of welfare or something. I mean, they need some sort of income. If you're living in a major city, I mean, in America, you need dollars. It's just part of the way our society is run. So, you know, there has to be something. And that's really where the issue happens, because at the end of the day, nothing is free. And where do all those dollars come from to support all the people that aren't doing anything productive? Meanwhile, everyone else is. And not only everyone else is being productive, but they have to be more productive and or work the same amount and put out more effort, even though their ability to produce was increased massively and there was a surplus of productivity because of extra technology and whatnot. And it's funny because if you think about it, the real way to build up wealth is to save. It's to be frugal. It's to like not use up everything that you have in reserve. Like that's the real way to truly build wealth is to, well, save it. And yet when it comes to productivity and you expand the capacity of what you can produce, you just want to max it out. And it's like, I don't know, at the cost of potentially generating extra profits, more profits. But at some point, the business is generating more and more profits. And what are they doing with those profits? That matters too. Like, are you just keeping it for yourself? Is the CEO just getting a bigger bonus? Is the shareholders, they get a bigger dividend? Like, okay, great. But what about your actual company? What about all of your employees? I mean, think about this. It is not just the actual workers who are producing, but it's also a lot of management is not getting compensated anywhere near what the CEO has, and they don't get anywhere near the same bonuses, and they might only be a couple of positions underneath that person. So this disparity is not just from the main workforce in a business, like all the grunts, if you will, but I mean the people actually getting their hands dirty, it's also in their management. There's a disparity between their actual middle and some of their upper management and the CEOs. And of course, I don't necessarily think the government should always get involved and regulate everything. But you've got corporations treated as people in the eyes of the law. And to me, that seems silly. Like, they get away with so much because of that. But a corporation will outlive all of its employees. I mean, multiple times over. You know, it's treated like a person in the eyes of the law, but it certainly doesn't have to respect the same natural limitations of a person, at least of a human person. I mean, what else is a person in the eyes of the law? And I mean, it is crazy. But, you know, another thing that's crazy about these corporations, and really just, especially if they're publicly traded, like everybody wants to talk about how private companies are allowed to do one thing or another. Like, you know, they can do what they want. They're a private company. We've all heard that, except the problem is a lot of these companies aren't really that private. You can buy shares of it on Robinhood. I could buy shares of it. Like, how private is that, really? So, that doesn't seem very private. And maybe I've talked about that before. But, either way, it is a really big question. Like, what exactly can you do? Because, honestly, if you think about how things will play out, imagine all the driving jobs are gone. Imagine... Because here was one thing I remember when Uber first started. I remember reading online that their whole plan was eventually to have a fleet of self-driving cars do all the deliveries or all the rides or whatever. And they didn't even have deliveries yet. It was just rides in the beginning. But it just makes you realize, like, do you think that Uber has given up on that? No. They're just now waiting for the right cars that can actually handle the job, which we don't have yet, but eventually we will. And really, there's a lot of good self-driving cars out there. It's mainly just having the infrastructure and network set up that allows a bunch of them to be on the road constantly all the time, and then boom. So same with food delivery, same with for the restaurants, same with everything. I mean, eventually I really do think that a fast food restaurant will be like maybe 1 or 2 employees to just do general stuff. Maybe a maintenance tech who's in charge of a few stores, and then maybe some kind of a manager who's in charge of multiple stores. But each store probably only needs a couple employees at a time. And, this could happen. Like I said, the technology's there. It's been there. It's going to take someone to decide that it makes more business sense, it's more cost effective to replace workers with automation. See, the main reason why this hasn't been done yet as fully as it could be is that it's very expensive. The initial cost is high. But now look at I think Taco Bell's have this. I think Subway's have this now. Automated ordering. You walk into the restaurant now and you type in your own order from a screen and it just sends it to them, or you order on an app and then you just go there and pick it up. So now somebody doesn't even have to take your order. So these simple things add up. You look at restaurants and you realize they have cash registers and phones, and they have somebody whose all their job is to run a single cash register and to answer phone calls. That's their whole job. That's their position. Eventually that's going away. It's crazy. There's already automated phone support for pretty much every big company. And a lot of times it's frustrating because the machines can't really understand everything or do everything. And, so eventually you can get to a person, but sometimes you can't. So even phone support jobs. As AI, listen, they put this machine learning, okay? They put oh man, the name escapes me. What's the one that beat Go and then solved the protein synthesis or protein folding or whatever? Man, I should look this up real quick. Hold on. I'm going to look it up real quick. An AI was called DeepMind. That was the company. And it was called AlphaGo. But the company is DeepMind. So you think that those guys can't come up with a better solution for phone support? I bet they can. Imagine they start applying those same technologies to phone conversations on tech support, on account support, on whatever you call your phone company, your internet company, your gas company, or any phone call you have to make, AAA, anything. They make that phone call totally automated using this AI that through machine learning has now got an answer to anything. Yeah, it's going to get there. In some places it already is there. I just don't want to name them. I've actually been on phone support calls before with certain companies where I thought I was talking to a person at first, and by the end of the conversation I realized this is a robot. This is not a human being. It was very, very weird to have that realization. And these AIs are already taking over. These AIs are, they are so far ahead of where people think they are. First of all, because of the way, this is where all these technology companies messed up. First of all, the ads. And here's where they messed up with the ads. First of all, they make a ton of money off of it. So it makes sense, right? They want to make a lot of money. But this is where they really messed up. Because they sell all this information to the ad companies, all of these different places are selling info to the same companies. That data is accumulating in the same places, and it's getting shared back and forth all over the board. So even though some of these companies and their technology, their websites, their apps, their services are separate from each other, there's a lot of data that gets passed back and forth. And these AIs pick up on that. And these AIs can communicate and find out who you're around based on other devices. They can find out all sorts of things. Like, I won't even get into the amount of the detail that they know more about us than we know about ourselves. Let's just put it that way. And these AIs, at this point, is all still driven by user input. I believe that. But they're starting to communicate in weird ways. Things are happening where these technologies are already doing things and learning stuff that they weren't originally designed to do. And if you watched, was it the Social Dilemma documentary last year that came out? If you watched that documentary, this is something that nobody in that documentary really quite admitted to, but if you can read in between the lines of what a lot of those guys say, they were alluding to it. The AI is already making moves. But it's not its own separate conscious entity like Skynet. It's not like that, at least not right now. It's just these neural networks, they function so well and so rapidly, and they do represent some form of cognition or learning in some sense. That's why it's referred to as machine learning. Like, these algorithms pick up on so much, they're already starting to perform in ways that they weren't really originally intended or designed to. And the really scary thing is, and I think in that documentary they might have mentioned this, but I don't know if they did. You have to understand, most of these software engineers, they weren't there when these products were first developed. They didn't write that initial code. They didn't write the foundation of what most of these tech is based off of. Like, if you saw who all the software devs at Facebook, maybe some of them have been around a while, but a lot of them didn't write the original code. And a lot of the code has changed, and it's gotten so massive, and so many people have worked on it, that no one individual knows the entire code base. That's impossible. I've worked in software. I know that. One person doesn't know all of it. Okay, you wouldn't possibly have time to read through all of the code and figure out how it all works. Okay, you just couldn't possibly have that time. You have a job to do working on a specific part of the software, and that's what you do. And maybe if you're curious, you poke around and you learn about other parts of it, and maybe you get a chance over time to work on different departments and then learn more about different parts, but nobody knows all of it, usually. Anyway, it's really scary. So, I mean, when you really think about this, like, it may not be a situation like Skynet that decides, oh, humans are worthless, and so let's create machines that kill all the humans. It might be a system that seems totally benevolent and helpful at first, like finding such productive, efficient ways to run logistics for a company, or shipping, or handle warehouses, or handle deliveries, or whatever, that you don't need any people to do it. And it's like, yeah, now people are free to do whatever they want. Except that means a ton of people are out of work. And that wouldn't be an issue, except our entire society is based on this idea that everybody has to work. And my question is just, is that really true? And not necessarily to give people an excuse, but just so that we can start opening our mind and thinking about this, because it's going to be a massive problem. And I don't have all the answers. I just know there's a lot of questions.